Hi, I'm so happy to see so many of us here today. My name is Merrilee Wortley. Louisville was only the second General Assembly I've been to, and it was my first as a UU and delegate. My first GA had been in Salt Lake City in 2009, and it had been a life-changing experience. And I found myself wondering how Louisville could possibly compare, but I needn't have worried. And before I forget, I want to thank FUS and Gene Sears for their support for people, the delegates who went to General Assembly. Without the financial help of FUS, I wouldn't have been able to go this year. When people have asked what GA is like, I have joked in the past about it being like a UU revival meeting. And at times in Louisville, that is just what it felt like. There was a Southern flavor to events and a twang in the ears. The music had a bluegrass and gospel feel to it. And I heard God mentioned more in those 5 days than I think I've heard in the last 5 years. There was a palpable excitement and joy we all seemed to feel at being together as UUs and swimming in the same river of shared values and faith. And floating over all of this was a little sadness too, in knowing that our Associate Minister, Karen Gustafson, would not be riding the bus back with us, but instead was heading off on her own new adventures as a soon-to-be retired UU minister. So, what should I share with you? Should I tell you about Frank X. Walker, the first African-American poet laureate of Kentucky, and his sharp observations and subversive humor? Should I tell you about Wendell Berry and his profound and sobering words on climate change, the urgent need for us to wake up from our denial, even though it might already be too late, but we should try anyway? Or should I tell you about the environmental issues affecting Louisville and Appalachia, and in the long term, us as well, such as the Ohio River flowing past our hotel, poisoned and dead with coal ash? And what about Abu Patel, who, by the way, is a really huge fan of UUs, and his message that interfaith cooperation is not about experiencing a big group hug with other faiths. Rather, he says, we'll know we're really doing the work of interfaith cooperation when we pull together with others in spite of our very profound and real differences. And what about Reverend Vanessa Southern's dynamic sermon encouraging us to dive into change and reminding us that no matter of the artificial barriers raised between people, we are all one? But no, I decided I don't need to tell you about those things, because you can go right to the UUA website and experience all of that for yourself, just without the sore feet. So instead, I want to tell you about an accidental experience I had that you won't find online. I don't know about you, but I have found that often the things I don't want to do are the very things I most need, that I need the most, and are the experiences that help stretch me beyond my comfort zone. Take, for instance, the reflection groups, the small groups that met daily so attendees could reflect together on their General Assembly experience. I had no time for reflection groups, or so I told myself. I didn't want to be obligated to a daily gathering. I had plenaries to go to, workshops to go to, people to meet, and the exhibit hall. So there I found myself on the first day looking for a spot to eat my lunch, and I saw Gail Bliss standing by an empty table. Excellent, I thought. It turns out Gail was the group leader for a reflection group, which was gathering soon. So I decided to go ahead and make use of the empty seat until the group got started, and then I told myself I was going to take off. But of course, as you already know, I ended up staying, and I'm glad I did. The UUA had thoughtfully chosen readings and questions for us to reflect on, and in retrospect, I realized what a great job they did at weaving the material into the different lectures and services. However, in the actual moment of sitting in the cafeteria, the readings and process seemed too long, too wordy, too whatever. I just couldn't connect with the content in the midst of so much stimulation all around me. But it was interesting to talk to the folks from the Chicago area and to learn about the similarities and differences in our congregations. And I got to know Gail in new ways and found myself admiring her willingness to put herself out there and her pragmatic leadership style. The reflection, readings, and questions focused on the vision of creating a beloved community in our own congregations, a term popularized by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and interpreted to mean an inclusive, interrelated society based on love, compassion, responsibility, shared power, and a respect for all people, places, and things. A society that radically transforms individuals and restructures institutions. And so we were asked, what promises would we need to make to each other to create the beloved community within our congregation and beyond? What had I experienced during this GA that inspired me to want to reach out to the wider world? And I needed to share one thing I was willing to do to bring the practice of covenant back to you, to my congregation. Answering these questions in the act of covenanting with my reflection group was challenging. You could see all of us squirming a bit when deciding what we were willing to commit ourselves to. FUS is my beloved community, but I must admit one which feels at times very one-dimensional and sometimes kind of complacent and self-satisfied. And I level those criticisms as much at myself as the congregation as a whole. One of the things I most enjoyed at Louisville was difference, the difference of race, ethnicity, age, gender, location, and difference is one of the things I most long for in our beloved community. That experience of difference at GA is what inspired me most and makes me want to reach out to the wider world. Specifically, I promised, I covenanted, that I would do what I could to make connections with others who are different than me and be a bridge from FUS to the wider world. I don't think it will be easy or comfortable necessarily, but I do believe the journey will be worthwhile. I hope you will join me.